Oh, yes.
Welcome back, everyone. Today I'm very excited to bring you a look at the new Transformers Collaborative Transformers X G.I. Joe Megatron H.I.S.S tank with Baroness. This is one of the most interesting collaborative projects to come out of the subline so far, and it's the first time that we're actually getting a Transformers and G.I. Joe collaboration where the vehicle that's, based around a Transformer, actually transforms. Actually has a robot mode. We've received, little club exclusives and convention exclusives in the past where you'll have, G.I. Joe vehicles painted up to look like a Transformer. But yeah, it's the first time we're getting an actual full-fledged Transformer, this time the Decepticon leader Megatron, that turns into a G.I. Joe vehicle. So, if you've seen my reviews before, you know how this goes. We're going to take a look at the toy's packaging, then we'll open it up. We'll get a good look at everything that comes inside the box, including the instructions, and then we'll see the figures themselves. We'll get a really good look at Megatron's vehicle mode and robot mode. We'll also be taking a good look at the Baroness figure and check out the articulation and accessories that come with both. Naturally, I'll be doing some group shots and comparisons today, and then at the end of the video, I'll give my final thoughts. So our figures come in this very unique and very special edition packaging. So it's a box that splits along this diagonal line here. They get a little bit of overlap from Megatron's arm. And half of the box is designed to look like a classic Transformers package, very G1 style, with this big illustration of Megatron on the front. And then the other half looks like packaging for a G.I. Joe vehicle, complete with that style of artwork, a shot of the H.I.S.S tank, your Baroness there. Down here we get a little photograph of what the Baroness figure inside actually looks like. This is the standard O-ring 3 3/4 inch scale Baroness, which does mean that this Megatron is quite large in his robot mode. So he's not going to be to scale with your generations of Megatrons that are generally around a Voyager class. He's going to be closer to the size of an old Leader class figure. This set does run $90 here in the US. Despite the size and the packaging and everything, I still think that's probably way too expensive. Of course, we'll find out for sure once we get this open and just kind of check the quality of everything. We'll see here in a moment that the Baroness figure actually comes on her own individual blister card, like her standard G.I. Joe style blister card, so that you can choose to keep it in there if you'd like to keep it more collectible. So that's always a cool option. I'm not keeping her in there. I'm going to open it because, I actually take my toys out. But I'll tell you, having her in that nice blister is going to make me really not feel great about ripping it open. All right, one thing that's really cool, I'm noticing they're going with the old Hasbro logo down here instead of the more modern, blue and white one with the little smiley face looking thing. It's the old 80s style Hasbro logo, so that's pretty neat. Up top, we just get renders of Megatron in his robot and vehicle modes alongside Baroness. Get the G.I. Joe logo right here. On the sides, we just get more renders of Megatron and Baroness. And then just a render of Baroness with the H.I.S.S tank mode and the G.I. Joe logo. So we turn this around, we get more of the renders, but this way, it's a little bit cooler. This shows you how Baroness can ride inside the cockpit of the vehicle, or how she can actually mount the turret on Megatron's back in his robot mode. We get our G.I. Joe X Transformers logo right here with the current year, 2022. We get the branding again up top, old school Hasbro logo, and then, very awesomely, we get this very faded out image of the old Transformers 1984, catalog collage of all the Autobots and Decepticons fighting each other. So this is very, very nice packaging. It comes off as being very premium. I'm sure that factors into the price some, or at least, they're going to use the packaging as an excuse to make this thing $90. But I will say the presentation is spot on. You can see my box is a little bit damaged right here. It's got this corner just kind of torn, and it came that way inside the shipping box, which is unfortunate. But it is what it is. So yeah, this is all very nice. Now I'm going to go ahead, do a quick cutaway, and I'll have removed the tape that's holding these two halves together, and we'll go ahead and do an unboxing. All right, I've gone and cut all 4 circular pieces of tape holding all this together. So now let's go ahead and start sliding this apart. Wow. Oh, okay. It's just a box. Thought there'd be like a tray or something there. Alright, so this appears to be a select style box. Just has the Hasbro logo. Get your collaborative logo right here. You get images of like top secret Cobra files right there. There's a message that says surveillance has detected spies scouting Cobra base. Unauthorized vehicle is identified as subject B. Be prepared to intercept. Their sting is sharp, but we are poised to strike. So, oh, I guess Baroness? I don't know, is Baroness coming to like raid Cobra Command or something? That's interesting. Subject B, right? I think it's Baroness. Alright, I'm assuming this opens like a selects box. Yep, here we go. We get the flap. Alright. Oh, it's all plain on the inside. Okay, so we get our Megatron all splayed out in his robot mode already. So that's kind of cool. He's on his own separate tray. I could have sworn the inside box was fancier when they showed it off. Maybe not. Might be misremembering through some rose-tinted glasses. Alright, so yeah, there's all that. Looking pretty cool. You can see like the fusion cannon, the cockpit, some part of the vehicle, some cannons there. Oh, here's the Baroness figure on its blister card. Let's see if I can safely remove this. There we go. Alright, I'm gonna have old Megs take a back seat. Let's see, here are the instructions along with that silly little piece of white paper that's always popping up. Alright, we'll get a quick look at the retro Baroness card. So you can see here it's made to look just like the old 1980s G.I. Joe figures. You got the old logo. You know, she's called the Cobra Enemy, right? Very simple stuff back then. It says Baroness. I don't know what this little black thing is right here. I'm not a Joe collector, for anyone that's wondering. I never have collected. I think that's a backpack for her, maybe? Like a parachute pack, something. Just got this rifle here. Really nice artwork, the old Hasbro logo again. Then on the back, we get, I guess, kind of like a tech spec card. I don't know what just a bio maybe. I'm not sure what the G.I. Joe terminology was. So, you know, you get Baroness. Her role is Cobra Intelligence Officer, primary specialty intelligence. Well, duh, I guess. Secondary specialty fixed wing pilot. I think she'd come with a jet then instead of his tank, but all right. Birthplace classified, graduated from student radicalism into international sabotage and the ranks of Cobra. Okay then. So there you go. She's a student activist. This is what happens. All student activists, they become evil and join Cobra. All right, then on the bottom we just get that artwork from the front of the package again with her with our Megatron H.I.S.S tank. You can tell it's Megatron because he's got his fusion cannon up here. And then your collaborative logo once again. Pretty cool so far. I can see why people would not want to open that up if they could help it. Okay, now we get our instructions, and these fold up into a tiny, tiny little square. I'm kind of surprised by that. So you get a render of your complete set, your Transformers logo, collaborative, you get the name of this toy again. Here we get some quick assembly instructions for putting Megatron together out of the box. Looks like everything just kind of slaps on. He wields that H.I.S.S tank panel as a shield, so that's interesting. And then we just go straight to the transformation. Continues all the way around on the other side. It's quite complex. Kind of surprised. So 28 steps. All right, maybe not that complex. Has you attach the cannons. And then this shows off Baroness. She can ride the back of the H.I.S.S tank by plugging her feet onto little pegs and using the turret. She can ride at the cockpit. She can ride on top of the turret. That's pretty cool. Or she can sit on the turret in Megatron's robot mode. So that's good. Nice, thorough instructions. Should tell us everything we need to get our Megatron transformed back and forth. And yeah, everything's been pretty impressive so far. It's got, like I said, great presentation. I love the way everything just kind of comes apart. I love, having the retro card if you want to keep her that way. So now let's go ahead and move on to actually seeing these figures in hand. All right, now we get to have a really good look at the Baroness along with Megatron in his H.I.S.S tank mode. So first, let's focus on Baroness. Just kind of get that part out of the way. So you can see she comes with her little stand. The old O-ring Joes, I believe they all came with, right? Could be misremembering. So, she plugs in with a little post right there. Just keeps her standing up, keeps her nice and balanced. She comes with her long, what looks like a sniper rifle, which I guess is fitting for an espionage type, right? And, you know, she's pretty cool looking. Obviously, you know, kind of an outdated design. The face could look better, but is what it is. She's got a lot of very detailed texturing and stuff on her suit, right down to a gun holstered on her leg. She's your typical O-ring construction, right? So it's all this movement right here in the waist area. Then you get kind of like universals for the shoulders, a bicep swivel, elbow hinge. For some reason, these Joes were molded in a way to where, like, if you have their elbow bending at like a natural angle, their hands are kind of turned up like this. So she doesn't hold her weapon very naturally. You can see she's got basically ball jointed ankles there. She does have knee bends, which is nice. And then here's that little backpack that we saw in her blister card, and that just plugs into the screw hole in her back. Good way to make use of you know, structural part of the toy. And yeah, I mean, she's pretty cool. Again, like the Joes, they were never really my thing. I mean, I thought they were kind of cool. My friends played with them, but yeah, I was way more into stuff like the Transformers. I just thought they were a lot cooler. But she's really neat, very nostalgic. Definitely takes me back to my childhood a little bit. So now, let's get a close look at Megatron here. And you can see he's just about a perfect recreation of the, like, 3 3/4 scale H.I.S.S tank. Right down to the decals used and everything. It's got the number 788 right here. It's got this, I guess, kind of like tech detailing. Got 363. I don't know what any of these numbers mean, by the way. So... But yeah, they're accurate anyway. Cobra symbol, GH7C, whatever that is. And then like just this long barcode right here with a V. Cobra symbol on the back. Pretty much all the same things on the other side. He gets a Cobra symbol here on the top of the turret. Now I did notice that he seems to be missing a little decal or sticker right here that had kind of a readout, like a monitor, that whoever's riding in the turret could read. I don't know if that was left out for budget reasons or if it was overlooked or what, but yeah, sadly, it's just blank right there. Obviously, this thing's been modified to accommodate his fusion cannon on top with a 5mm port. One thing that's cool is you can see it's got this trailer hitch here, which is actually made out of Megatron's abdominal section. And I had to look into that a little bit because I wasn't sure what that was for. So years and years ago, they put out a red version of the H.I.S.S tank that could tow something called the SMS, or Sentry and Missile System. It was just a recolor of like the Joe MMS, you know, so it's just kind of a portable missile artillery rack thing. So yeah, they engineered a little trailer hitch that looks, you know, functionally identical to this one that would allow the H.I.S.S tank to tow it. So this actually maintains that, which is a really cool touch. Of course, it kind of makes me sad this guy doesn't come with an SMS now. Like, imagine if he had an SMS that could break down into like more additional, you know, weaponry and stuff for Megatron. That would have been really neat, and probably help justify the $90 price tag on this thing. Costs more than a Commander, for crying out loud. So that would have been cool, but at least the compatibility is there. So yeah, it looks really nice. It's got little wheels that it rolls on, and for the most part, it's not insanely obvious that this is a Transformer. If you look here, you can see what are Megatron's feet, but they're, you know, pretty flush in there. Once you start looking on the underside, it's a little more obvious, and then here on the back, even though it is a functional trailer hitch, it's also obviously Megatron's chest plate. So, I mean, I think overall they did a good job, you know, disguising Megatron as an actual H.I.S.S tank, and not making a vehicle mode that looks very compromised by the fact that it is actually a Transformer. Okay, so now we're going to break out the Baroness again. I'm going to show off the way she can interact with this toy. So you got two little posts right here. She can stand on either one to just kind of hang out on the back there. Doesn't go in there very well, kind of tight. So you can have her just kind of riding on the back. What's really cool, kind of place her more off to the side here. You can take another Joe figure and put them there, right? You could have a whole bunch of Cobra characters just ride along on this thing. She can go in the turret, either by, like, you know, being deep down inside of it, or sitting on the edge, which is how the instructions show it. Her arms just kind of outstretched and holding on to stuff. I think she was holding like the fusion cannon or something. Now she's not like secured in there by any means. There's some little clip thing on here. I'm not sure what that's about. I did notice, one small difference. So you have this little bit right here, which I'm not entirely sure what it is. Thought maybe it was supposed to be for seating, but like it doesn't actually secure to anything that I can tell. I did notice that on pictures I saw of like old actual H.I.S. tanks, there were two of these little things on the turret section. They were like more offset to the sides, so I'm not sure why the difference is there. Maybe that's just a different version. I don't know. I would think with, such a minor detail, it wouldn't cost really anything to tool in. They wouldn't just change it for budget reasons or anything, so there's probably a reason for it. I'm sure there's some sort of precedent. All right, so now we're going to turn the turret, which you can see this does turn, by the way. These also move up and down. Of course, they're just plugged in via 5mm posts. Same thing with this guy. So you can move them around a bit. Let's move the turret, pop open the cockpit, and we'll go ahead and place Baroness inside. So get her sitting up straight as you can. You gotta really get her in there too. Make sure she's like deep down in there or her head collides with the little cockpit windshield thing here. Now, getting this to actually pop in might take a little bit of practice. You have to get it kind of the right angle so it really secures in there. There you go. Now Baroness is actually riding around inside, so that's pretty cool. There's not really a great place to put her weapon when she's driving around in this thing. I guess you can just kind of stick it right in there, leave it out, throw it in the cockpit with her, but she's not really going to be able to hold it because it's just a little too big and unwieldy for a cramped space. But that's really cool. If you were like an old Joe fan or old Joe collector and you walk by this, you probably wouldn't think anything of it. Like you'd be like, oh, hey, look, a H.I.S. tank, that's cool. And may not even realize the small differences that, allude to the fact that it's Megatron. Maybe this might give it away. Let's take that off. All right. Now you'd be like, oh, look, a H.I.S. tank. So, it really succeeds at what it's trying to do here, right? Because it's a Transformer, but it was released mainly to celebrate the 40th anniversary of G.I. Joe. So from a design philosophy perspective, I can understand why so much focus went into the alt mode. Now, as we'll see, that does mean that the robot mode isn't the greatest thing ever. And some of that, I think, was necessary to achieve the alt mode. Some of it, absolutely not. Just, keeping it cheap. A lot of things seem like they were just really keeping production costs down, like well below what they're charging for this thing. But when we get to that point, I'll leave it up to you to decide that. Now, while Megatron is the first official G.I. Joe crossover Transformer, there have been unofficial ones over the years. The oldest of which that I know of is this toy right here. This is Transformers Energon's Snowcat, who turns into, well, a snowcat. So, yeah, he's an interesting case because he is a Decepticon, but he turns into a Joe vehicle, a good guy vehicle. And a fairly accurate one at that. Obviously, some allowances have to be made because he is only a deluxe-sized Transformer. He still has to turn into a robot. But, he comes pretty close. And then the other one that I have is this toy right here. This is Combiner Wars Viper, who is just a minor retool of Power Glide, but he turns into an approximation of the Cobra Rattler, which is obviously a plane used by members of Cobra. And he's a tiny little thing. So again, the accuracy is not really there, but he looks, vaguely like a Rattler. He's colored to look like one and everything. And it is just interesting to see, how often the G.I. Joe franchise has been alluded to or referenced in Easter eggs throughout the years in the Transformers brand. And again, that's not even counting like the non-transforming figures we receive, especially like the club exclusive ones. They even did that Too Human episode where they took G.I. Joes and made them the human versions of the Autobots from that old G1 episode. So, it's kind of neat how much synergy has just been kind of mingling between these two franchises over the years. But now we actually get something a little more concrete and official. And I know this is something a lot of people have been asking for a very long time, because a lot of the people that grew up with Transformers also grew up with G.I. Joe. And fictional crossovers have just abounded. They've been all over the place since the 80s. And, seeing some of those designs realized in plastic form is something that a lot of old-time Transformers and Joe fans have been clamoring for. Which, of course, I think is something Hasbro is very well aware of, which is why they want to charge $90 for this, because nostalgia is a heck of a drug. Alright, now it's finally time to transform Megatron to his robot mode. So you start by removing his weapons up top. Technically these can stay on, but I'll take them off just to keep them out of the way. Take them off nice and gentle like that. I'm going to turn the turret around. Open the cockpit area like so. And then this is going to untab from the treads on both sides. Oop. Probably should have pulled that off first. Yeah, that's supposed to come off. Revealing Megatron's face. Go ahead and push that down. Alright, now we finished lifting this up. Get it out of the way. Then this bit you're going to lift. You're going to fold the feet out. Come on. There we go. Get the arms out of the way. Then we're going to split these apart. Like so. Bring these out to the side. We're going to untab Megatron's chest from these treads and lift it up. Then untab the front of the treads from the rear. Like so. Okay, look like that. We're going to extend his legs out. We're going to flip out his heel spurs, which are just part of the treading there. Alright. This might get a little unwieldy. This is all flipped out and unfolded. Alright, so start straightening all this out now. So this is going to push back until it clicks into place. I'm going to fold these down. Flip them like this to form Megatron's little missile launcher hip skirt things. And you are going to flip these up like so. Push the chest in so that clicks in place. And click the shoulder panels in place. Alright, these, you're gonna fold these forward, flip that up, and then fold these back. Same thing on this side. Forward, up, back, boom. Fix the elbows. I'm facing the right way. And here, we're going to actually fold this bit down. And lastly, this is going to plug into his back with little tabs. Make sure I get them on here. Let's see. Get it on there. There we go. Is it on this side? Oh, no, because the panel's flipped up. That's why. Yeah, this will help hold those shoulder panels in place once it clicks in. If it will. Get on there. There we go. There we go. All right. So this is our Megatron without the weapons attached. Boy, he's big. I have a hard time getting him in the shot here. All right. Okay, so we can go ahead, take the two cannons here. I'm going to put it back on the turret section. Like so. I'll lift them up so they're not colliding with his head. This piece actually becomes a shield that you plug on to this port. That's actually on the back of his hand instead of his forearm. That's something that's kind of weird about this guy, the way his armaments connect to him. And then his fusion cannon plugs in the same way on the back of his hand. Now, I think I see why they did it that way, because if you look, he really wouldn't have a lot of clearance if this thing was further up. So it is a little weird and awkward looking, but at a quick glance, it looks okay. All right, so now here he is, all armed up, ready for battle. And I mean, he's an imposing looking figure. He's a really big old Megatron. He's got a lot of heavy weaponry attached to him. As I said, he's definitely not in scale with the Generations Megatron. He is more or less the size of an old school leader, like a pre-War for Seibertron leader. So maybe Prime Wars, or maybe even going back a little further. Now we need to look at this guy's articulation. So his head is on a ball joint. He's got shoulders that lift up, and the kibble lifts up with them to provide clearance. Go this way, so he does have universal shoulders. He does have a bicep swivel, single elbow bend. No wrist articulation, sadly, and it's partly because of where this port is. So you get all that. He does not have a waist swivel at all because of the way his torso has to come together. His hip skirts move on a ball joint. He's got universal hips, a thigh swivel, knee bend, and then sadly no ankle articulation. So he's definitely behind the curve when it comes to posability. And of course you could always count things like the turret swiveling too. But, you know, he doesn't look terrible from the front, even if he is a bit of a brick. It's really, once you start looking at the back and at certain angles, that the robot mode really kind of falls apart. So if you look, backs of his legs are super empty. His forearms and even the backs of his hands are just completely empty. And really do not look like a $90 toy at all. And then to me, the most egregious part, so if you go ahead and look up under here, he doesn't have a back. There's no back. Like, he's got back kibble, but no back. It just, you can see his abdominal plate from here. So, very subpar robot mode. Like, it has size, and it has presence, and is mildly articulated. I mean, I will admit, you know, it does have things like universal joints and all that, but then it's missing some certain, you know, staples of modern Transformers that really hold it back from being a, you know, good robot. Like, not even good looking, because from the back he looks terrible. But just being like a good action figure, he feels like something from a few decades ago when it comes to articulation. Which I wouldn't mind if this thing didn't run $90. Like, that's just a lot of money for this. I also want to point out the fusion cannon. This is also one of the more egregious things. Look at this. Super empty underneath. Like, they're not even trying to fill it in at all. Like, this part's completely empty. Just, you know, as I said, the focus for this toy was clearly on the vehicle mode, because the robot mode is just not even close to, you know, current standards for Transformers toys. So that really is a shame. Lastly, for this look at this robot mode, I'll show you that the Baroness can just go ahead and ride back here in his turret, just kind of hang out and, you know, man the guns while Megatron's storming into battle. So I do like that that cohesion between the two of them. I like the idea of her not just being kind of cast to the side and being useless when he transforms, that she can actually utilize his weapon systems and act like, you know, an extra set of eyes. Like, especially if she's, you know, gunning from the back, like, you know, shooting at enemies that might be creeping up behind Megatron. So there is a nice bit of synergy between these two. And again, it's a really cool concept. Like, I think this is a cool toy. I just don't think it succeeds very well as a robot. And I won't even say it doesn't succeed as a Transformer, because the transformation's actually quite good. You know, for what he is, you know, the engineering of the transformation is fine. It's just the engineering for articulation and, you know, fullness of body are just really not there at all. And here's a look at Megatron with Snowcat and Viper again, this time in their robot modes. And, you know, what's really cool about this is if you are a longtime collector and you've managed to pick up little, you know, odds and ends like this over the years, you can start to build your own little G.I. Joe Decepticon army, which I think is pretty neat. And this guy, being as huge as he is, definitely has the presence to command these two. Now again, it does look kind of weird and awkward having a G1-based Megatron be that big. I mean, there have been large Megatron characters that, you know, are easily like a liter size, but they've had very different designs, and like that size has just always been a fact for them. Whereas this guy, I mean, he looks like he's, you know, been enlarged by some sort of plot device piece of technology or something. Which kind of brings me to a point I forgot to bring up earlier. One of the things I'm not super crazy about with this line, with this Megatron and the B that have been revealed, is that when they designed these, they felt the need to give them incredibly Generation 1 based robot modes, like as much as they could possibly get away with, but then have them transform to something that doesn't really fit that robot mode at all. Like Megatron's robot mode looks the way it does because of what he used to turn into. Bumblebee's robot mode looks the way it does because of what he used to turn into. So, aesthetically they really don't match. And I do feel that the toys would have been better if they had more unique robot modes, like ones that blended the aesthetics of the vehicle they turn into. Like, you can still make them recognizably the G1 character, especially if you keep the head design more or less the same, but give them a different body type. And we've seen this throughout the years. We have seen plenty of Transformer and G.I. Joe crossovers where they come up with these really cool, unique designs for the characters that, they still look like the character, but the fine details, the colors, the body parts, all that, look like they blend in with the vehicle mode. So that's something I really wanted to see from this line, and unfortunately the designers have a very different philosophy on that. They want to make the characters as recognizably G1 as possible, which maybe from a marketing side, that'll get these to sell more. I don't know. Me personally, how many G1 Megatrons do we need? You know what I mean? Something a little more unique, like say that Stealth Bomber Megatron from Thrilling 30, I think would have been a lot cooler, and probably would have allowed for a better robot mode, one that doesn't have to be just kind of haphazardly folded up inside of a vehicle shell. That's just me. You can see these guys, they actually integrate their vehicle mode into their bodies. Now, to be fair, they kind of have the advantage of being built around that in the first place, whereas Megatron, you'd have to come up with something new. But I don't know, it's not what I personally wanted from a G.I. Joe crossover, but maybe more people prefer this over the alternative. I'm not really sure. I'd love to know what you guys think of that, though. Speaking of G1 based Megatrons, here is a comparison shot with the Transformers Seige Megatron. Now, on the one hand, you might think, well, why not use Earthrise? Because he actually has like an Earth-based vehicle mode, and he's a little more G1. Which is true, but the reason I have these two together is if you look at their head sculpts and their head designs, the helmet designs, they're very, very similar. Like, he obviously has a lot more in common with the head design of this toy than he does the Earthrise one, which to this day I'm really not a fan of. It always just looks oddly misshapen and puffy, like it wasn't actually meant to be the G1 Megatron head. So I always felt this was a better head sculpt, and clearly the designers think so too, because this Megatron's head looks a lot like the one from Seige. And even a lot of the fine details match between these two. They have a lot of the same little like divots and stuff. He has a little more, like he gets the ones up here on the top of the helmet that he lacks. But you can see they have like little cheek divots there. They both have those like dark little triangles over the brows, and the faces are pretty much the same shape. So yeah, I don't know what the exact inspiration for this guy's head sculpt was. It could have been the Seige toy. Maybe they pulled it from the Netflix cartoon, which, really was a Seige toy. But it is... I think they're too similar for it to just be coincidence, right? They have to have a shared inspiration somewhere. Because even the Seige head isn't like a perfect match for G1 Megatron's head, either, the toy or the cartoon. I think it comes a lot closer than that weird misshapen Earthrise head. But, the similarities are too close to just ignore. And this completes our look at the new H.I.S.S tank Megatron. Overall, I think this is a neat figure. I think it's really cool. It's definitely something that's really never been done before. And I am very much impressed by the toy's ability to transform into a near perfect replica of the old G.I. Joe H.I.S.S tank. The fact that it comes with a carded Baroness figure is also a really nice touch. The packaging is just beautifully done. It's a really cool toy. Like, yes, the robot mode is very heavily sacrificed to achieve that near flawless vehicle mode. And again, it's something I wouldn't mind if this wasn't so very, very expensive. Let's compare this Megatron to, like I said, an old school leader, right? He's big, but simplistic. So let's throw him out at like leader class pricing, like current leader class pricing of about $56. you still have, what is it, $34 to make up after that. And like, you know, that little Baroness figure is not worth $34. So, you know, let's even throw on an extra $5 to $10 for the premium packaging and all that. It still really doesn't add up. And I do feel that Hasbro is very much cashing in and banking on people's, you know, nostalgia and the fact that they have been clamoring for something like this for a long time. And I think the mindset is like, oh, well, you know, they want this badly enough, they'll pay anything for it. And I mean, to some degree, they're going to be right. I mean, there are going to be a lot of people that end up picking this up, and they'll feel perfectly fine spending $90 on it. Now, obviously, I bought this thing, and it was, you know, mostly out of like a morbid curiosity and also just a desire to review it and let people, you know, get a good look at it and decide if they actually want to drop the money on this. I don't think it's worth the price. I think it is very much overpriced. I would personally, unless you really, really, really have to have this, because you've just been hankering for it for so long, I would personally wait until this thing goes on sale, because I'm sure it will. At the current price, I don't think these are going to completely sell out, and you'll probably see them on clearance. And it's not something I recommend often, because, you know, clearance is always a risky game, because, you know, it might sell out, not go on clearance. I think this thing will. So if it's something that you're mildly interested in, and you want it either because it's a Transformer, or it's a Megatron, or G.I. Joe thing, whatever, but you don't feel like you have to have it, I would wait. If you really, really feel that you need to have this, you can probably justify the price point. I mean, I did to some degree. I don't think you'll be getting a good deal, but at the end of the day, if you're happy with it, you know, I mean, you can't put a price on happiness. So, yeah, I'm kind of mixed on it. Again, because I'm more of a Transformers fan than I'm a G.I. Joe fan, like by a large margin, I'm not crazy about the idea of having this really, you know, simplified, watered down robot mode in exchange for a nice G.I. Joe vehicle. However, if you are a huge Joe fan, I can see you being more forgiving of that. So yeah, I would just say it's a very mixed bag for me. It's really cool. I just wish it were about maybe $20 less expensive. Of course, that is just how I feel about this new Megatron. So now I want to know what you guys think of this. Is this like one of your bucket list items, just something you've always wanted to see and you're so happy to finally get a Megatron that turns into a G.I. Joe vehicle, it's the coolest thing ever, and you don't care about the price? Maybe you do like it, but you're a little more lukewarm on it, and you're like, oh, well, that's kind of neat, bit pricey though. Or maybe you just don't want this. Maybe you don't like the way it turned out. I know a lot of people have a big problem with the robot mode, and I don't blame them because it's not very good. Or you just don't care about G.I. Joe stuff, or the price is just so outlandish you cannot even attempt to justify it. Any and all feedback is always welcome in the comments section. If you enjoyed this review, make sure to toss it a like. Let YouTube know you want to see more stuff like this. If you do want to see more like this, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you always get a heads up when I post something new. I thank you for joining me for this look at the brand new Transformers and G.I. Joe collaborative H.I.S.S Tank Megatron with Baroness figure. And with all that said, I will see you next time.